Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Custer and Wolfe Building a Watch Company. RT here, going deep today on product placement. A lot of people ask us, how do we get our Vortic watches on the wrists of people like Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, and John Krasinski on Jack Ryan? And I'm going to answer that for you today. So I have a lot of cool watches here on the table, one of which that's been on John Krasinski's wrist, one that's been on Michael Kelley's wrist, some really cool, what we call internally prop watches. I also have a watch sitting here that's destined for Kevin O'Leary or Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank's wrist. But before I get into product placement and why we spend so much time and energy on it, I want to talk about product placement versus influencer marketing, because those are very different things. We are not sending watches to these influencers or to these famous people and paying them a ton of money to wear them and talk about them and things like that. That is influencer marketing. And influencer marketing is a huge industry. It costs a fortune to play in that world. And you have to give away a ton of products to different influencers in order to actively play in that space. And for us, and for Vortic Watch Company, that just never really made sense because, we make hundreds of watches a year, 300 to 400 watches a year. And so to give away even 10 to influencers is difficult. It's hard to rationalize. It's hard to justify. Especially when you also, typically in influencer marketing, you have to pay a lot of money to be on that person's wrist or for them to talk favorably about your watch. The difference between influencer marketing and what we do, which is product placement, is sometimes comes down to just money and the fact that we're not paying these people to talk about us and say nice things about us. But a lot of times it comes down to that old adage of, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And for this and product placement, especially for Vortic, that's 100% true. And that adage keeps coming back to me in being an entrepreneur and running a business over and over again. It is 100% who you know, especially in an industry as hard to get into and as niche as this, not just watches, but like getting a watch on somebody's wrist, an A-lister in a movie or on TV. It's nearly impossible unless you know someone, like in our case, we know Mark McFan. Mark, who's a good friend of mine now, works in the product placement space. And his background, he did a lot of this for his former company, Royal Purple, which is an oil company, like mobile oil, things like that. And I don't know if he would say this as his claim to fame, but one of the things he loves to talk about is like a big win that he got for Royal Purple is in the movie Salt with Angelina Jolie. She jumps down and is hanging on to the side of a Royal Purple oil truck for like a significant amount of time in a very big movie. And you'll probably start to notice this now as you watch your next major film or you watch a TV show, product placements are everywhere, but that's what they are. And they're sometimes really subtle, and it's just like she's hanging off the side of a Royal Purple oil, truck. In the back of your mind, you're like, what's Royal Purple? And then you see it over and over again, and you realize like, I'm going to choose that one now instead of mobile the next time I'm in the store because it's kind of like this inherent thing that happens. You see it, and that's why influencer marketing works so well and why product placement is like this whole massive industry that nobody really talks about, is these companies are placing their products in major movies, on TV, and they're subtly marketing to us. It's in every movie that you watch, the cars that they're driving, the watches that they're wearing, the clothes that they're wearing, the backgrounds, the advertisements. Sometimes, like as people are walking down the streets of Manhattan, you can see billboards and advertisements in the background. Most of those are product placements. They're there on purpose. And it's really cool to like think about all the products that have been placed in these things. But long story short, we know Mark. He runs a company called Cast a Long Shadow. And that's what he does now, is product placements for us and people like us. And he gets us in movies and on TV shows. He wasn't the one that got us onto Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, but that is kind of where this whole thing started and how we knew this was going to be a good investment. I'll get to some of the really cool stuff that we've done with Mark, but I wanted to start with the story of how we got a watch on Kevin O'Leary, or most people call him Mr. Wonderful, from Shark Tank.
You're murdering money in front of children.
I forget which season it was, but my friend Anthony runs a company called MC Squares. And Anthony went on Shark Tank and pitched and got an investment from Kevin. Mr. Wonderful was the only one that invested in Anthony's company. And he makes these really cool whiteboards that like reusable sticky notes and other whiteboard type of things. And Mr. Wonderful invested in his company. They shook hands on Shark Tank. Confetti went everywhere. It was a really cool episode. And Anthony sends me an email and says, hey, I'd love to make or buy a watch for Mr. Wonderful as a gift because he invested in my company on Shark Tank. P.S. I need it to arrive to the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas by Thursday. And I think this was like a Tuesday. And also, P.P.S., it's got to have a red strap on it because Kevin only wears watches with bright red straps. And that wasn't something that we made at the time. We didn't have an option for that. An American-made red strap was hard to come by. So we hustled, we figured it out. We made Mr. Wonderful a watch because, you obviously don't say no to an opportunity like that. And it arrived, and there was crickets for a while. And a lot of this you'll see as we go through product placement and why we do it. It's a long game. You do not hear anything for months, typically sometimes years from the time that you send the watch until you see it on TV or you even found out that they even received it. It's all a huge risk. But with Mr. Wonderful, it was really cool because not only did we see him wearing that watch on the first couple episodes of season 12 of Shark Tank, but then a YouTube video came out where Kevin O'Leary sat down with his friend, producer Michael, and they went through just some cool watches that Kevin had gotten recently. They were just talking about Kevin's watch collection and the new watches that he's received recently. And Kevin just raved about his Vortic watch.
This arrived in the hotel room where I was staying at the beginning of the Shark Tank shoot.
And he said it worked so well on TV. And he actually read that we put a handwritten note in the package because we're Shark Tank fans, I think a lot of people are. Like, it's really cool to be able to have a watch on someone like that. And he read the note, the handwritten letter, on YouTube.
My name is RT, and I run Vortic Watch Company in Fort Collins, Colorado. We salvage and restore antique American pocket watches and turn them into one-of-a-kind wristwatches, one of a kind.
And that video has almost 2 million views now. And so that's really where this whole thing came from, is when that video hit, we realized, okay, this is why people talk about getting watches in movies. This is why people do influencer marketing. Typically, people pay a fortune to have someone like that say a nice thing about them, and to get several minutes on a YouTube video that's like an hour long, all about watches and about this very wealthy, very famous person's watches, and to have him say the stuff that he said about Vortic and his, like, he says, like, basically one of the coolest watches he's seen recently and this new concept he's never seen before, and he's holding it and he's like, this worked so well on TV, and they even made a custom red strap for me, which we did. It was almost not red. It was like a really deep orange. It was just the closest we could get in 48 hours, but he loved it and he raved about it. And like I said, normally people pay a fortune for that. We just had to make a watch. And so we were kind of, at least I'll speak for myself, I was kind of hooked on this whole concept of product placement because it wasn't that difficult. Again, it was more about who you knew. And I just happened to know a person named Anthony who got an investment from Kevin and had a good idea. Like, let's make Kevin a watch as a gift. Sold. That's great. So we've continued that relationship. And one of the watches I have here on the table, this is our new Victory watch. This one, though, is a really special dial. It's originally made by the Packard Car Company. And it says, "Ask the man who owns one" on the dial, which is extremely rare and really cool. And I think just right up the alley of Mr. Wonderful. So we put a custom red strap made by Jack Foster, which is one of our new strap companies that we found. And they made this very red, perfect strap for him. So Mr. Wonderful is about to receive a video from me telling the story of our Victory watch and lawsuit with Hamilton and things like that, and see if he wants to wear this one or talk about this one. Or ideally, what we'd really like to do is have him or even just his team come here to Fort Collins, Colorado, and tour an American watch manufacturing company. I think that would be really cool. So that's the pitch I'm sending him, and that's how it works. Is once you get in, once you have a connection, again, it's about who you know. Now I can send an email as a follow-up and say, "Hey, thank you so much for saying all those nice things about our watch. When you got it for Shark Tank, here's another idea. Would you be open to this?" And sometimes follow-on ideas like that require either additional gifts, like I'm not going to charge him for this watch, or they require financial investments. Like he might say, "I'll wear this, but for X amount of dollars." And sometimes those make sense and sometimes they don't. But you got to be in the ring if you want to fight. We're in the ring. We're trying to figure this out. And it's been really cool learning about all this kind of stuff. So back to Mark McFeehan and Cast a Long Shadow and him getting us connected into movies and movie stars now, or TV stars, I guess. We've pitched through Mark and his company a bunch of different movies on Vortic. We've gotten a couple Vortic watches in movies recently, which have been really cool. The biggest hit, though, that we've gotten is season 3 of Jack Ryan. We sent this watch, this is our second edition of the military edition that we made in 2020. They were starting to film season 3 of Jack Ryan, I think in early 2020. And the way that works is we work through the prop masters. The prop master is the person that decides what everything is on set. What types of tables they're using, what they're wearing, what the actors are wearing on their wrist. But the prop master designs, takes the set design from, the rest of the team and says, "Okay, I need to find all the correct props that make sense. They have to be period correct. They have to make sense in terms of what the movie is and the style of it and all that kind of stuff." And for season 3 of Jack Ryan, they wanted a really cool military-inspired watch. And so we said, well, that's what we do. This is the military edition. This is literally a pocket watch that was flown on the B-17s in World War II, and we turned it into a wristwatch, and look how freaking cool it is. They agreed. The prop master was like, "Yes, that's ridiculously cool. Only problem is I need 2. And that's a huge issue for us. In movies, they always want 2. So I have the 2 that we sent for John Krasinski here, which is the next part of the story. But we had to find 2, and we had 1. And so I took my personal watch off because my personal watch, military edition, is one of these. And I sent my personal watch and 1 extra military edition that we had from 2020 to Michael Kelley for season 3. And Michael Kelley, if you don't know who that is, he played Doug Stamper on House of Cards, which I think House of Cards is one of the coolest shows I've ever seen. I love that show. Really enlightening on how Washington, D.C. works. But Doug Stamper was a really interesting character, and that was my first introduction to Michael Kelley. Just a really cool actor. And obviously, I was like, okay, if we can get a watch on him, that'll be just a really good way to get into this new world and get into maybe Netflix shows and TV shows and not just movies. And so Mark and I had that conversation, sent these 2 watches off, and now years, literally years, that's why I said it's a long game, later, we just received these watches back, and we call them prop watches. So these 2 watches will remain prop watches. They'll go off to another movie and things like that. But we sent Michael Kelley a watch now that he could keep. I sent him one of the 4th editions, and I just got a text from him, said thank you, and said it's the coolest watch ever. And now he's as an actor thinking like, where can I wear this watch, and how can I wear a Vortic watch in other movies? And he's just really excited about it. So again, once you find the people, once you're like in the crowd, then you can have these really cool conversations. But that's not even the coolest thing that's happened. Everybody knows who John Krasinski is. John is the lead actor in Jack Ryan. I think we all know him from Jim in The Office. And we're all Office fans in this building. If you're not an Office fan, Google it, please, because it's the coolest show. I think we all joke about how I think when we're all, in retirement homes late in life, it'll just be playing The Office on, the side all day, every day, and just Office on repeat. John Krasinski is obviously very difficult to get to. You can't just say, hey, John, on an email or Instagram and say, I'd love if you could wear our watch on Jack Ryan. Like, you can't do that. He saw in season 3 when they were filming, obviously he's friends with Michael Kelley. Michael Kelley's one of his co-stars. He saw this watch on Michael Kelley's wrist, and he asked the prop master if he could have one too. And we got an email. It gives me goosebumps to think about it. We got an email from the prop master and said, hey guys, we got a problem. John Krasinski wants one too. And I said, that's not a problem. That is the coolest thing that's ever happened. And at that time, we were making the 3rd edition, which is our steel case military edition. This one's from 2021. We said, okay, well, let's make 2 extras. And we got ahead of it, and we said, let's make 2. And this one is engraved on the back. It says Jack Ryan season 4. This is for season 4. It hasn't come out yet. Prop watch, 1 of 2. And there's 2 of these. And so we made these watches specifically for John Krasinski on season 4 of Jack Ryan. And they have just now, I guess, wrapped up filming for that. I don't think season 4 has come out yet. But if you watch season 3 of Jack Ryan, you'll see this watch on Michael Kelley. And if you watch season 4, you'll see both that watch on Michael Kelley, but now this watch on John Krasinski. Yeah, it's ridiculously cool. It's so fun to now have these connections. But why, taking a step back, why are we doing this as a company? One is awareness, and it's people will see these military editions watches on the wrists of their favorite actors. Somebody like John Krasinski is very influential and would cost a fortune to try to pay him to wear the watch. And the fact that he asked if he could get one is insane. But now there's these, there's Reddit threads about like, what watch was John Krasinski wearing in season 4 of Jack Ryan? Again, you'd have to pay a fortune to try to do that. Now Vortic is going to show up. It's like, oh, that was Vortic Watch Company's military edition, 3rd edition. Here's a link to it. Here's what it looks like. You can't buy this anymore. So now the perceived value of our product goes way up. Same with Kevin O'Leary, right? Kevin has hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. He can buy any watch in the world. And he said he loved his Vortic watch. And not a single time when he was talking about how cool his Vortic watch was, did he say how much it cost. He probably doesn't even know. But the previous watch that he was talking about in that video about his watch collection, that watch cost $1.2 million. So he was just finishing talking about a $1 million watch and then picked up a Vortic watch and said how cool it was and never said how much it cost. So again, things you can't buy, things you can't pay for, that level of credibility and cool factor and stardom, right, is really awesome. But then there's also advertising for us. You now will start seeing advertisements on Facebook and Instagram and Google and YouTube from Vortic Watch Company with my face on it, holding this watch and saying this watch was on John Krasinski's wrist. And here's the story, right? Now I can use that credibility and I can use that cool factor to tell other people that we exist, and people that maybe don't even really like follow watches and they're not like a watch person, they will come and check out Vortic Watch Company because they're a Jack Ryan fan. They're a John Krasinski fan. They just like how cool that is. Maybe they just like that the pocket watch was flown on the B bombers in World War II. Holy crap. That's how they come over to us. It unlocks a whole new division or side to marketing that would be impossible for us to do without, again, stepping into that very expensive world of influencer marketing. So that is why we do product placement. Those are the products that we have had placed in different movies, TV shows, and on the wrists of people like Kevin O'Leary, John Krasinski, Michael Kelley. Thank you to Mark McFan for all that you've done getting us into these movies and on these TV shows. Thank you to the stars that are wearing these watches and saying nice things about us without getting paid. Thank you. Can't say thank you enough. And if you have questions about this process, maybe what our next movie that we're going to try to get into will be, which watches from Vortic's American Artisan series have been placed in movies, please feel free to comment on this video or send us an email. We love having these conversations, and especially if you're, an Office fan or a Jack Ryan fan or just you watch a lot of TV or movies and you're just a fan of this whole idea. We definitely want to hear from you. Where do you want us to send our next watch and for who? Thanks again for watching Custer and Wolfe. This episode was all about product placement. Again, if you want more of this kind of content, you want to learn all the behind the scenes, how it's made, what we do here in this building in Fort Collins, Colorado, making one of the only truly American-made wristwatches. That's what the Custer and Wolfe Building a Watch Company show is all about. We're documenting what we do here at Vortic, here in this building, not just the fact that we make watches, but everything behind it. Please subscribe here on YouTube so I can give you some more of this content, and head to vorticwatches.com and get yourself on our email newsletter so you can be alerted when we put out the next video. I think I got it all.